every time we are faced with a challenge or change or any kind of unforeseeable circumstance, first of all, it's human to say, oh man, no, why this problem? I don't want this. I wasn't, as Tony Robbins said, you're lying. You don't like surprises. You only like surprises that you like. And, in terms of the first A is acknowledging where you are in terms of how did this challenge happen, what did I do to lead maybe or have my influence in the equation. Acknowledge the situation that you're in, because that's the only way that you can move forward. And the moment that you acknowledge where you're at, the energy already starts shifting, because you are seeing it clearly, and you are in a way admitting it rather than fighting it and resisting it and complaining about it.
Welcome to Harry Handles It, a podcast where we dive into the world of personal growth, success strategies, and everything in between. I'm your host, Harry Nalbandian, and today we're going to chat with an incredible guest who has some amazing insights to share. Remember, no matter what life throws your way, I'm here to help you handle it. So let's get started. Welcome to the Harry Handles It podcast. Today we've got the incredible Ivan and Mariana Polic on, who are serial entrepreneurs, and they use their own transformational journey to create what they call the Shift Intelligence System. Ivan and Mariana, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great to be with you.
Happy to be here.
It's a pleasure. So really, let's get to talking about what brought up the Shift Intelligence System, and can you talk about that crisis and the 6-day turnaround?
Yes, well, we ran a very difficult aerospace business, and we were cutting metal to less than a hair's tolerance, making mission critical parts for the aerospace industry, for commercial airliners. Millions of our parts are now flying in the air, carrying people safely through the skies. So you can think about some stress going on there, and a 24/7 operation, and things going wrong during the night, and you never wake up clean. There's always something going on. So that was our journey. We had a very difficult time, because in 2008 we almost got wiped out. Many of our kind of businesses went out of business, and we were able to weather that storm and barely survive. And from there we had to climb back up and make things happen. And eventually we grew our team enough and our operation to a place that didn't need us anymore. And when we finally sold to private equity, our transition to the new buyer took only 6 days. That's unheard of for a business that's technical in nature like this. Typically, owners have to stay on for a longer transition, but in our case, it was only 6 days because we built a team and a system and a culture that was handling everything completely independently of us.
That's awesome. Can you share a little bit more about the team, the building of the team, the building of the processes, the building of the systems that made your autonomous business easy to exit?
Well, when we took over the business, it was highly centralized. It was, as we call it jokingly, a one-man show, where one man was deciding on a $5 decision, $5,000 and $500,000 decision. And the team was not really developed, although they were talented people at that time. They weren't really developed in terms of decision making, power, shining through their talents, and utilizing and realizing their full potential. So for us, we immediately knew that if we were going to grow and eventually quadruple, that was a dream, which came true. We knew that we had to actually decentralize and promote from within, hire talent, train them in leadership and skills, technical skills and, leading skills and everything. So that was one of the biggest turnarounds that we did in our company when, which is a culture turnaround, when we went through a series of, ups and downs and fighting some visible and invisible dynamics when it comes to new way of doing things and change and transition. And we went to several iterations of, different teams with different individuals and, different responsibilities, going from one man and, a small, just kind of, basic team to, a team that was a core team that led the company, and then also having the middle management, and then the lower management, the departmental management. So that was we're very proud of that, and that was the thing that enabled us to actually exit, and for the company to live on in the best possible way,
That's a great
and
story.
sustain the systems.
So, I mean, I think about this all the time, and I've kind of, when people ask me what running a business is like, I like to frame it into three different ways. It's essentially the management of people, the management of processes, and the management of capital or resources. And those three things kind of take care of the 95% umbrella of what a real business does. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good way to look at it. Um, Cash is the oxygen of business, and if you mismanage cash, you run out of oxygen, and pretty much everyone can go home. That's all she wrote. So if you don't do that one, I think it's the fundamental that it's always going to be there and present, and must be taken care of really well. Obviously, you spoke about processes. Uh, Processes are critical, and having clear processes and documenting processes and processes that have been optimized and improved and um, really shared and trained on, and all of these things, that all those pieces are critical, especially in the aerospace industry.
Mhm.
Aerospace industry has something called the AS9100 quality system. We would get audited twice a year by an independent audit, and they would come on site and they would ask for every piece of paper and documentation you can get. For about 10 years, we had 100% compliance on that. So we were really, really steep deeply into the process side of things. It was very, very important. What was interesting about the whole thing is that even with all the processes, we just wrote a book called Shift Intelligence: The End of Founder Dependence. And in the book, chapter one covers actually our failed sale process. We jokingly say we failed due diligence, uh, and this is after 10 years of compliance, 100% compliance on all the processes. Processes were there, but when it came down to actually the buyer making us a real offer after the due diligence, they made us a tentative offer, which we liked, and then through the diligence process, they learned that maybe this is more risky than they thought in terms of the people side, in terms of the leadership depth that we had, and they said, we really like you, we really like the company, but we're concerned that there isn't as much depth in the leadership depth in the leadership of the organization. And so this really speaks to your people side of things, and the owner dependence will not be handled until the people side of things is clear. Uh, Processes are probably the vehicles in which trust gets um, implemented, but the actual trust is carried by the people, and having great people and having trained people and having people that are willing to take initiative, willing to take responsibility, uh, willing to carry the load and come and join in. The biggest part of owners and going through that journey is inviting and including more people to actually really be inspired by the mission of the organization and to join the mission of the organization based on their terms, based on what they want to create for their reasons, for their families, for where they want to go, for what they want to do. If you can show them that if if the mission of the organization gets fulfilled, you get everything you wanted on your way to your future. And that's the piece that was the crucial piece. And I very much agree with your three pillars there. Without them, nothing happens.
Yeah, big time. And it's fun. our company's core values is unstoppable growth, and that's both in terms of the business side of it, but also personal. That's a big paradigm shift that I try to make with the team. Is look, this is not just about what we do to help people, but this is also about leveling up ourselves.
Mhm.
And if you feel like you're in a place where you can't have unstoppable growth, well, let's talk about it and let's see why we can't help you achieve your own goals along with also the company's mission. So that resonates pretty deeply with me.
Yes, definitely with us as well. We've been on a growth and development journey for more than 20 years, both of
It
us.
never stops.
It never stops. There's always something, that we don't know, right? And that is especially, I mean, obviously, when you become a parent, you immediately want to be a better person, right? For your children,
Yeah.
for the society, for everyone. And then when you become a leader in the company, then that carries even more responsibility, because you do want to show up for those people in your best self, and knowing also how to manage some of the hard times that are happening when you are a leader, and then help them also do that. And for us, we did a lot of research on employee engagement and culture, and disengagement as well, and what goes on when at home when the employee is too stressed at work. And that's when we realized that not only we need to bring ourselves up to the level of the game that is sustainable, and also helping our employees, but also how do we do that for them. And so that's why we offered many different courses, whether it was online, in person, different kind of seminars, different kind of elevation of any possible skill that we can think of. And a lot of us took us up on it. And it was actually interesting to see how they appreciated it, because they didn't really get it offered someplace else. Because they just wanted them to come in, do their work, and they don't really care. An employer didn't really care what was happening later on, in when they went home. But we did, and that's we even every meeting that we had on a Friday, because we met every day at 9 a.m. It was kind of like a touch-in meeting where we shared everything, a quick 15 minutes one. And at the end of every meeting on a Friday, I will tell them, okay, so make sure when you go home, and during the weekend, make sure that you nourish your body, mind, and soul. You love your families. Make sure you get some time in nature. That was always a constant reminder for them, so that they can, feel like they can taking care of them in a wholesome way.
Yeah. Now, you talked about the due diligence part and how maybe there was some concern about the depth of leadership. Was that fixed pretty quickly? Because it seems like the deal closure was 6 days. So how was there a shift that happened immediately?
Yeah. So no, this was a different buyer.
Got
We
it.
we had to tell this buyer, to take a hike, because he's adjusted the valuation was
To
not
reflect.
something was not
Was
something we
disappointing.
take. So we then went on a very deep journey of making the business completely independent of us. At one point, I was working 80 hours a week, being the glue, and connecting all the different things, and we were growing pretty rapidly. And with growth always comes new demand and new capacity building that is needed. So I was carrying a pretty heavy load, and then at that point, when the failed sale happened again, we then recommitted ourselves to really make this happen. And I worked myself down to a 2-hour work week
Nice.
over about a 3-year period. It took about 3 years of very, very conscious effort of handing things off, building capacity in leadership, creating intentional leadership of vacuum of leadership, where I wasn't the one always stepping in to solve every problem, where I gave space for people to come into, where I engaged them, involved them, invited them, made deeper connections with our team, make sure that uh, every process, every decision could be made without me, and we built it very, very consciously. And that's what enabled a 6-week process. When we were making the final deal, they said, we like what we see. We're gonna make you this offer, but you have to stay on for 6 months. We said, Absolutely not. We're not, the team has got it. We haven't been here, 2 hours a week only. That you don't need us." He said, "Well, I'm sorry that you have that opinion because we're not going to be able to do the deal." And we said, wait, wait, wait a second. Maybe we can do a little bit of transition. So we said, how about 2 days a week? We'll give you 2 days a week for 6 months. And you can have a little more certainty about making sure that this handoff is really strong. And how about that? And they said, okay, that's the deal. Let's do it. And then in the third week of that transition, they said, you know what? You were right. You were absolutely right. Thank you very much. And that's our 6 day transition of a very, very difficult aerospace manufacturing business.
That's pretty awesome. Well, as a commercial flyer, I appreciate all your efforts and your processes. It's nice to sit on airplanes that work.
Yes.
Yes.
Was there an exact moment where you realized that your business was about to collapse or there was imminent trouble coming in?
Well, which one? There were a few moments.
Well,
Well,
give me the one that the most resonates in your mind as like the biggest obstacle you had to overcome before shutting down doors.
I think that was the 2008 crisis. We all were affected, by it in any which way. For me personally, it was the COVID one where I, as a chief cultural officer, had to, really um, understand the depth of what was going on. On one hand you have the orders, what you can and cannot do. On the other hand, you have your customers who are saying, you are part of the critical infrastructure, same as us, so you have to stay open. So how do I manage this and keep people alive? It was literally a life and death in terms of that kind of a understanding. But in terms of the business, I think that was, and Ivan can speak to it, because then, I haven't joined the business at that time yet. I was shortly gonna join, but he was the one who actually bore the brunt of the 2008 collapse that affected us and how did we get out of it?
Well, it was a pretty steep drop. We went from $527,000 of revenue down to $37,000 in revenue from 1 month to the next. We were losing 200 grand a month, and there was no light at the end of the tunnel. Even Boeing was struggling. Everybody was struggling. Nobody was ordering anything. There wasn't like you could, come up with some kind of solution. For about a 6 month period, we were pretty desperate, and we were planning how to best go bankrupt so we can salvage some crumbs from that. And our advisory board saved us in that moment because there were some very experienced people on that board, one of them being Keith Cunningham. And they said, the way things stand now, you only have about 2 months worth of oxygen. You only have 2 months worth of money to keep paying these bills. And if you don't do anything, that's it. That will be it. You will have to shut down in 2 months. But if you get ahead of this thing and you make deep enough cuts, and cuts were really atrocious. He said you would have to go down from the 24/7 operation down to three days a week with one shift. You have to let go 75% of your staff. And if you do that, you will have a 9-month window in which to turn it around somehow. You'll have 9 months of an opportunity to find traction again. And we were like, I was like, I don't think I can make those cuts. And they said, no, we're not protecting now. We're protecting the business and we're protecting the chance to rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not an optional decision. This is a decision you must make. And I was like, wow. And I had to look, 20 families in the eye and walk them out and tell them I cannot protect you. I'm sorry. And but in month 7 of that 9 month
Good deal.
window. We got a small customer. We got enough traction to survive, and that was the first light we saw at the end of that tunnel. And within 6 months after that, we had hired 80% of the people back, because the whole economy started to pick up a little bit, and the aerospace sector started to pick up a little bit. The orders returned a little bit, and a little by little we clawed our way back to health, and eventually we scaled and exited 13 years later. But yeah, that's the story of the deep crash of 2008.
That's such a great story. I don't know that a lot of business owners or even people generally would have the resilience to kind of make those decisions and live through them for so long. And you got so close to that 9 month tightrope, right? I mean, you're almost 80% there. And then things started to turn around. Was that moment where you saw the turnaround transformative for you in any way, where you started to see the process come to fruition?
Well, together with our advisory board, even the small crew we kept didn't have enough work. And so it was a kind of a leap of faith for us to utilize the time we had with them for something constructive, something on purpose. So we actually got certified for AS 9100 quality system. We did internal work, internal cross training. We were preparing for work that wasn't there yet. We were doing everything in a good way, and we were scratching on the outside, looking for some traction while that was going on. So we tried to utilize our energy in the right direction and prepare for the eventual turnaround, and it all worked out. And on the back of that, we were able to expand our customer base and serve more people and grow out of that process. So we didn't sit still. And I would call that liminal space, kind of the messy middle, where you don't really know, but you better prepare so that when the opportunity comes, you can take advantage of it.
Mhm.
Right. Now,
And
good.
yeah, it's also what he gave us a really really tough experience at the onset of the journey, which then set us up to know how to handle every consequential crisis that was happening afterwards. And that not only us, so that we could regulate our nervous system every time at onset of whether it was internal crisis or external crisis, and but also to help our employees and our team live through it, because they, in those tough moments, they're like, okay, so we know that something is happening. Are we going to have a job? What is going to happen? They look to the leader to see how the leader is going to react. And are we going to panic? Are we going to go into the fetal position? What's going to happen? And every time that the next crisis came in, we were able to help them and pacify their nervous system. And whether they were with us for a long time or a new member of the team, that gave us, as they say, never waste a good crisis.
Yes.
Whether Machiavelli who said that, I don't know. But we always tell our clients now too, when they're at thick of it and they're wishing that they were not going through it, and we just explain to them how beneficial it's going to be for them personally, for the whole company, and for the team.
Yeah, I mean, there is no growth that happens without some discomfort. It's you need. It seems like it's not a. You need one for the other. Now, I think this is a good segue into talking about the shift intelligence and the AAA framework. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that means?
Well, shift intelligence was born out of experience when we were on our kind of recovery journey. The way we used to run things was not going to take us into the future we were looking for. So we needed to adapt in a major way, and we needed to build more capacity in the team. And at that particular time, the team was used to not taking a lot of initiative. It was used to seeing the leader lead and following the leader as opposed to leading themselves. And we had a lot of initiatives, a lot of ideas, a lot of energy, and not a lot of progress for a few years. It was very difficult dealing with the kind of resistance to change and resistance to growth and resistance to discomfort and resistance to expansion. And we were dealing with these resistances, and we were surprised of how entrenched certain habits were, and how entrenched certain points of view were, and how it were not budging. And not only how it wasn't budging on the individual level, but it wasn't budging on the organizational level. We were feeling like this is the Bermuda Triangle. Like, this is the best of the best. These are the best practices. This is the best energy we could. This is the best process. This is the best everything, but no results, because we were just not aware of the deeper systemic dynamics that were needed in order to create change, the transition frameworks that were required that we were not aware of. And because of that, in hindsight, after we've made all the moves and changes, we kind of saw the underlying frameworks that enabled, after a lot of trial and error and best practices and best mentoring and training and best leadership frameworks and all of these things, we found our own way through it. And we created a very extraordinary result that is not a very common thing to see in the world out there, especially in the aerospace industry. That complete organizational independence from the owner, that's a very rare thing across all industries, especially in aerospace. So Shift Intelligence was born out of our searching for answers to deal with transitions and transformation within the organization. And it's a set of practices and a set in a certain point of view that is required in order for you to deal with change management, leadership, to deal with transitions and transformations in a way that raises foresight and what's coming up, around the corner for you and your organization. It raises adaptability tremendously, not only in the leader but in the organization itself. And finally, it raises resilience, which you must have resilience, especially in today's world of fast change, of even faster change today. I think shift intelligence was always needed, but shift intelligence is a must-have in these days. That kind of increased foresight and capacity for adaptability and resilience in today's world is a survival set of skills.
Yeah, and I definitely agree. Was there something that AAA framework stood for, or is it just the methodology for adapting change to the organization?
Yes, it does. So every time we are faced with a challenge or change or any kind of unforeseeable circumstance, first of all, it's human to say, oh man, no, why this problem? I don't want this. I wasn't, as Tony Robbins said, you're lying. You don't like surprises. You only like surprises that you like. And
That's a good
no.
point.
So, in terms of the first A is acknowledging where you are in terms of, how did this challenge happen? What did I do to, to lead maybe, or have, my influence in the equation? Acknowledge the situation that you are in, because that's the only way that you can move forward. And the moment that you acknowledge where you at, the energy already starts shifting, because you are seeing it clearly, and you are, in a way, admitting it, rather than fighting it and resisting it and complaining about it.
Actually, hostage negotiators use this skill when they come into very highly emotional situations that are volatile, and acknowledging what things are and how things are and what things feel like, calling it out for the environment really calms nervous systems. They have hooked up people in their brains and showed people images that are shocking nature. And if the person names the experience, if the person labels the image, their amygdala activation is tremendously lower than if they just observe an image. So if you're taking things in and you're not acknowledging what is that to you, what the meaning is, what is it for you. If there's more uncertainty in the brain, more uncertainty in the nervous system, and more emotion rises up, which decreases your ability to manage and decreases your ability to think. When you're really jacked up on all the emotions and all the adrenaline, your quality of your cognitive side of your brain is a lot reduced. So the acknowledge piece is very, very deeply beneficial, because it creates space where you can think clearly and you can get in contact with reality. Many times we're not even in contact with reality. So how can we navigate reality if we're not even in contact with it?
And so, basically, what Ivan is saying, it's not that we just cooked it up in our kitchen; it's scientifically based.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, and then on to the second A, which is allow. um, just because you acknowledge it doesn't mean that you're okay with it, or that you like it, or that it's mostly like, oh yes, okay, like everything, all of that is true. But are you able to allow it to exist? How they said, like, in a parallel universe, you can allow it to exist with you, and that you make peace with it, where you are not fighting it, and you're not resisting it, and you're not giving it a meaning that it's not necessarily serving you, but you allow it to exist.
It already exists. And if you argue with it, you're just wasting energy. And so it exists for some reason. We don't know. It's beyond our pay grade. This uncomfortable,
Mhm.
unwanted, whatever it is, it already exists. It has appeared in your life.
Right.
And whether you allow it or not, it's already there. So you might as well allow it and not be in conflict with it, because
Mhm.
when you allow it, the resistance is a lot lower. This is that piece about resistance. If some equal and opposite force, that whole thing, the tug of war. And so if something is coming at you and you are allowing it, you are not in resistance or reaction to it. So your ability to respond to situations in a more intelligent and wiser way goes up tremendously with the second A, the allow.
So, as an example, in our situation, when that deal fell through with the buyer, when he said that the business is still overly dependent on us, we had to acknowledge that. When he said that, that was not pleasant. We hated it. There were a lot of profanities, internally.
What do you
you know
mean? Yeah.
Well, the
so
profanities made it into the book of all
yeah.
places because they were so loud.
So it was, when he said that, we once we got off the call, we actually had to sit down and we had to acknowledge it. Yes, the business does depend on us, so on Ivan specifically, too much. And then, whether we didn't like it, but then we allowed it to be in existence. That's how it is. And at this point, we can, disagree with it or agree, it doesn't really matter. But what do we do now?
Yeah.
And once we acknowledged and allowed it, that's when the aligned piece came in, which is the third A, which is, okay, now that I know it and I agree with it and make peace with it. Now, how do I align all the pieces together, first internally within me and then externally with the rest of it, so that I can move forward? And in our case, it was the alignment with us and the team, and then the alignment within the team.
And we call it the AAA framework because you don't leave home without it. Because roadside assistance of life and business is a very important framework to have in your back pocket for all kinds of situations, whether with your customers, clients, team, or whether with your kids or wife or parents, or whether it's any part of life. This is a very useful tool to have in your back pocket.
I agree. I mean, just as you were telling me this story, I can think of a million places this would apply. I mean, a million conflicts that you can either ignore and kind of internalize and it builds up, or you can use the AAA framework and acknowledge it, allow it to exist, and then align yourself and externally to either change the direction or do something else that doesn't create the conflict. That's really great.
Thank you.
So, Ivan and Mariana, can you tell our listeners a little bit about how they can find out more about you, get in touch with you, and where they can find some more information?
Yes. So if they go to shiftintelligence.co, they will see, a little bit about us and our history, about our frameworks. They will see some case studies as well. There also a download button when they can download some goodies, how to kind of do like a self-assessment of where they are and their company, a little bit more about the framework, and they can connect with us through there. And, our emails are mariana@shiftintelligence.co and ivan@shiftintelligence.co. And we just love connecting. We're also on LinkedIn, very active, so they can find us there. And that's about it.
We have a new book coming out called Shift Intelligence, The End of Founder Dependence. It's a movement we're starting because too many business owners end up running their businesses for decades and having to shut down after they retire. We think that that's terrible because so much value that's created for the community kind of ends right there. And we are very passionate of continuing helping founders have their businesses continue beyond them, whether that's through succession to the next generation, or whether that's to the selling to a buyer that will continue and steward the mission forward into the future. So the unfortunate statistic is that 80% of businesses actually either go out of business or shut down at the end of the working life of the founder, and that is a terrible loss of value in the world. And that happens because not many people actually face the fact of how dependent is their business to them, and building enough capacity around them in order for that business not to depend on them anymore. So it's hard work. It's not easy. It's not an easy transition to make, but it's much preferable to having to shut your business down once you retire. So we always say, choose your heart, and know that one of them is coming. So just think which one you're gonna go, because Father Time is undefeated. We all gotta retire. We're living in an impermanent world, and we don't get a choice on that. So we must really be intentional on the choices we're making.
Yeah, incredible conversation, some great insights. Thank you, Ivan and Mariana. I hope to have you again on the podcast, and this was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us today on Harry Handles It. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and found some valuable takeaways. If you're facing challenges in your own life or business, remember that you're not alone. Together, we can handle anything that comes our way. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you liked what you heard. Until next time, keep pushing forward and handling life with confidence.